For decades, Ice Cube has been a name synonymous with music, movies, and cultural influence. From his days as a founding member of NWA to his successful solo career and blockbuster film roles, he has seemed untouchable, a figure of strength, talent, and resilience. But behind the fame, the accolades, and the public persona lies a story that few truly understand. At 56, Ice Cube is facing a tragedy that is beyond heartbreaking. A personal struggle that shakes the foundation of everything fans think they know about him. The pain isn't something that can be seen in interviews, chart-topping albums, or box office numbers. It's a private heartbreak, one that has quietly unfolded over years, leaving him to confront challenges that even his toughest lyrics can't fully express. Friends and family hint at struggles that go far beyond the public eye. A combination of health concerns, personal losses, and battles that test even his legendary resilience. What makes this story even more devastating is how unexpected it is. Ice Cube, a man who has always projected strength and confidence, now faces a moment in life that feels incredibly fragile. For fans who grew up with his music and movies, the reality of his tragedy is jarring. It's a stark reminder that no level of fame, talent, or wealth can shield someone from life's most painful trials. Yet, even in the face of heartbreak, Ice Cube continues to persevere. The tragedy does not define him entirely, but it adds a layer of vulnerability that few have seen before. His story is now more than music and movies. It is a deeply human narrative of struggle, resilience, and the quiet courage to keep moving forward despite overwhelming challenges. Prepare to see Ice Cube in a way you never expected. Not as a star on the stage or screen, but as a man confronting the heartbreaking reality of life. At 56, Ice Cube's rise to fame is legendary. A story of talent, ambition, and unrelenting drive. Born O'Shea Jackson in 1969 in south-central Los Angeles, he grew up surrounded by the struggles and harsh realities of life, in a neighborhood marked by poverty, gang violence, and systemic injustice. From a young age, he witnessed the world's harshness, experiences that would later fuel his music and define his uncompromising voice. In the late 1980s, Ice Cube emerged as one of the founding members of NWA, a group that would revolutionize hip-hop forever. Their music wasn't just entertainment. It was a raw, unfiltered commentary on life in the inner city. With each lyric, Ice Cube spoke the truth of a generation, and his talent quickly elevated him to national prominence. Controversial, fearless, and unapologetic, he became the voice of the voiceless, and audiences both celebrated and feared his power. By the early 1990s, Ice Cube had begun a solo career that cemented his status as a cultural icon. Albums like AmeriKKK's Most Wanted and Death Certificate showcased his lyrical genius. Tackling issues of race, politics, and inequality with intelligence and fire, fans admired his authenticity. Critics respected his craft. Beyond music, Ice Cube transitioned into acting. Starring in films that ranged from action-packed thrillers to hit comedies like Friday, proving his versatility and broad appeal. Yet, beneath the public persona of a confident, unstoppable star, the seeds of personal struggle were quietly growing. Fame and fortune brought pressures that few could understand. Ice Cube navigated the expectations of the entertainment industry while trying to remain true to the roots that shaped him. Long hours, grueling tours, and the constant spotlight created stress, and the demands of maintaining his family, business ventures, and artistic integrity added to the weight he carried daily. It was during this period that the first hints of tragedy began to surface. Not the kind broadcast in tabloids or headlines, but personal challenges that slowly wore on him. Health concerns, family pressures, and the invisible toll of decades of public scrutiny began to cast a shadow over the man who seemed so unshakable on stage and screen. Even as he continued to produce music, films, and business projects, there was a quiet struggle, impersonal battle waged away from cameras, interviews, and public events. Ice Cube's story is one of contrasts. On one hand, he is a symbol of success, resilience, and influence. On the other, he is a man grappling with challenges that fame cannot solve. The tragedy that would later define this chapter of his life was rooted not in his public endeavors, but in these private struggles. the quiet pressures that no amount of money, talent, or fame could erase. By the end of this period, it was clear that Ice Cube's journey was about far more than music, movies, or cultural influence. It was about the human cost of navigating success, the sacrifices required to maintain authenticity, and the unseen battles that even the strongest among us must face. As the story unfolds, the depth of his tragedy will come into focus. A heartbreaking reality that no fan could have predicted, yet one that defines the man behind the legend. By the time Ice Cube reached his 50s, he had built an empire few artists could rival. His music had influenced generations, his films had entertained millions, and his name carried weight across industries. On the surface, it seemed as if nothing could shake him. Yet the reality behind the fame was far more fragile than anyone realized. Decades in the spotlight took a toll that even Ice Cube's resilience could not fully mitigate. The pressures of fame were relentless, from the constant scrutiny of the media to the expectations of fans, collaborators, and business partners. Every decision, whether artistic or personal, was magnified, criticized, and dissected. The man who had grown up in South Central Los Angeles, who had survived violence, poverty, and systemic oppression, now faced a different kind of battle, maintaining his identity and sanity under the unforgiving glare of public attention. Health challenges began to emerge quietly, often overlooked by those who only saw his on-screen confidence and commanding stage presence. Years of grueling tours, demanding film schedules and physical exertion, began to strain his body. Injuries, fatigue, and stress compounded over time, leaving him to manage discomfort and pain while continuing to perform at the high standard his fans expected. It was a hidden burden, one that few could truly comprehend, especially when juxtaposed against his public persona of strength and invincibility. Beyond physical strain, personal struggles quietly shaped his life. Family matters, long-term responsibilities, and private losses added emotional weight. Relationships, both personal and professional, required careful navigation. The demands of mentorship, collaborations, and investments brought financial pressures that weren't always apparent, but contributed to the growing strain. Each decision, no matter how calculated, carried potential repercussions that could affect his career, legacy, or personal well-being. Even his creative choices became a battleground. Ice Cube has always prided himself on authenticity, but staying true to his voice while meeting commercial demands was a constant tension. Projects that promised financial reward might clash with personal values, while passion-driven endeavors sometimes carried risk. Balancing integrity, profitability, and public expectation created a mental and emotional burden few could appreciate, further deepening the unseen pressures of his life. The tragedy that would define his mid-50s began to crystallize during this period. It was not a single catastrophic event, but a culmination of stresses, health, personal responsibilities, and the relentless expectations of fame, converging into a reality that felt increasingly overwhelming. Ice Cube, despite his outward confidence, began facing challenges that no amount of talent, money, or influence could fully shield him from. Friends and family observed subtle changes. There were moments of withdrawal, nights of sleepless reflection, and periods where he seemed weighed down by burdens that could not be shared publicly. Even his closest collaborators noticed the growing strain. Yet the man who had thrived under pressure for decades remained committed to pushing forward, driven by a sense of duty to his craft and those who depended on him. By the end of this chapter, it becomes clear that Ice Cube's tragedy is not a single event, but the product of years of accumulated pressure. The man admired for his strength and resilience is confronting a reality that even he cannot easily navigate. Fame, success, and talent do not erase human vulnerability. And at 56, Ice Cube is facing the heartbreaking consequences of that truth. As the story moves forward, the next chapter will reveal the personal heartbreak, the pivotal moments, and the shocking truths that have brought Ice Cube to this challenging chapter of his life. The reality is deeply human, profoundly affecting, and beyond anything fans could have expected. As Ice Cube approached his mid-50s, the pressures of a lifetime in the spotlight began to converge with personal struggles, creating a reality far harsher than anyone could have anticipated. While fans celebrated his achievements, from music to movies to entrepreneurial ventures, behind the scenes, he was navigating challenges that few outside his inner circle understood. The tragedy that has now become impossible to ignore is both deeply personal and profoundly human. Health remained a persistent concern. Years of demanding tours, film shoots, and physical activity had taken a toll. Injuries, fatigue, and the natural effects of aging combined to limit the pace at which he could work and the energy he could bring to his projects. Yet Ice Cube's dedication to his craft and his public image often forced him to push through pain, masking the reality from fans and colleagues alike. The man whose lyrics and performances radiated strength was quietly battling the limitations of his own body. Emotional strain also played a significant role. The demands of maintaining a successful career, managing family responsibilities, and protecting his private life from public scrutiny created a pressure cooker environment. Relationships, even with close family and friends, became complicated. Ice Cube had to make difficult choices, balancing loyalty, expectations, and the harsh realities of fame. These personal sacrifices, while often invisible to the public, left an emotional mark that intensified over the years. Financial and professional pressures added another layer. Even with decades of success, the entertainment industry is notoriously unforgiving. Choices that seemed simple on the surface, accepting or declining projects, pursuing new business ventures, or mentoring younger talent, carried consequences that could ripple across his career. Ice Cube's reputation for authenticity meant he could not compromise easily, and every decision was weighed against both personal and professional considerations. The cumulative effect of these pressures became overwhelming. Perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect is the sense of isolation. Despite his fame and connections, Ice Cube confronted these struggles largely alone. Public admiration and accolades cannot fill the void left by private pain, and even those closest to him often only glimpse the depth of his challenges. The man who appeared unshakable on stage and screen was navigating a reality where strength alone could not provide relief. This chapter of his life is not defined by a single catastrophic event, but by a series of compounding pressures that reached a critical point at 56. Health, emotional strain, and the relentless demands of fame intersected in ways that left him vulnerable in a way few had ever imagined. The tragedy is heartbreaking precisely because it is invisible to most of the world. A quiet, personal struggle that contrasts sharply with his public persona of resilience and control. Yet even in this darkness, Ice Cube continues to persevere. He remains committed to his music, his films, and his influence on culture. But the reality of this period in his life underscores a powerful lesson. Success and talent do not immunize anyone from the hardships of life. Even the strongest individuals face moments that test their endurance, and for Ice Cube, 56 has brought such a moment, one that resonates deeply for anyone who understands the hidden burdens of human existence. As Chapter 3 closes, it becomes clear that Ice Cube's tragedy is both personal and universal. Fame, influence, and legacy cannot erase vulnerability. The next chapter will reveal how he navigates this heartbreaking reality, the choices he faces, and the hope, resilience, or consequences that lie ahead. The story is far from over, but the weight of this chapter will linger in the hearts of those who have followed him for decades. At 56, Ice Cube faces a reality that few could have predicted from the confident, unshakable figure the public has admired for decades. The tragedy of his life is not defined by a single event, but by a combination of physical, emotional, and personal struggles that have accumulated over time, leaving a profound impact on the man behind the legend. Health challenges remain central. Years of demanding performances, grueling film shoots, and physically intense tours have left lasting effects. Chronic pain, fatigue, and the natural wear of decades in an unforgiving industry have begun to limit what he can do, both on stage and off. Despite this, Ice Cube continues to push forward, refusing to let his struggles dictate his life. Yet the reality is undeniable. Even the strongest must eventually confront the limitations of their body. And for Ice Cube, this has become a sobering truth. Equally painful is the emotional toll. The pressures of fame, managing a career, and maintaining a private life in the public eye have compounded over the years. Relationships, though meaningful, have sometimes been strained by distance, time, and the demands of his career. The isolation that accompanies the struggle, even for someone as accomplished as Ice Cube, is profound. Few outside his inner circle fully understand the weight of responsibility and the sacrifices he has made, both professionally and personally. Financial and professional decisions have also carried consequences. While Ice Cube has built an impressive empire of music, film, and business ventures, each choice came with pressure and risk. Projects that succeed or fail do more than affect his career. They impact his legacy, his reputation, and the people who depend on him. The burden of maintaining excellence, creativity, and relevance in a rapidly changing industry adds another layer to the heartbreak he faces at 56. Perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect is the contrast between public perception and private reality. Fans and the media see a confident, resilient icon, someone who seems untouchable. Yet behind the scenes, Ice Cube is confronting a combination of health issues, personal sacrifices, and emotional struggles that no amount of fame or fortune can erase. This dissonance between image and reality underscores the tragedy of his situation. The stronger the persona projected to the world, the heavier the unseen burdens often carried in silence. Yet, even in this dark chapter, there is a thread of resilience. Ice Cube continues to work, create, and influence culture, refusing to be defined solely by hardship. His response to adversity is a testament to his character. Confronting the truth, enduring the challenges, and striving to continue his legacy despite the pain. But the tragedy remains undeniable. At 56, Ice Cube is facing a level of struggle that is heartbreaking not only because of its intensity, but because it exists largely unseen by those who admire him. The full weight of this reality is both sobering and humanizing. It reminds fans that even legends are vulnerable, and that life's challenges can affect anyone, regardless of talent, success, or strength. Ice Cube's story at 56 is a powerful reminder of the complexity of human experience. Triumph and tragedy, resilience and vulnerability, success and heartbreak can coexist in ways that are often hidden from public view. In the end, Ice Cube's tragedy at 56 is beyond heartbreaking, precisely because it combines so many layers: health, personal loss, emotional strain, and the relentless demands of fame. It is a chapter that forces both the star and those who follow him to confront a difficult truth. Life is unpredictable, and even those who appear strongest are not immune to hardship. Yet, in acknowledging this tragedy, there is also recognition of his perseverance, his courage, and the ongoing journey of a man who continues to face life's challenges head-on, even when the weight is immense.